Hello and welcome to My Career in Data, a podcast where we discuss with industry leaders and experts how they have built their careers. I'm your host, Shannon Kemp, and today we're talking to Katrina Ingram from Ethically Aligned AI.
More and more companies are considering investing in data literacy education, but still have questions about its value, purpose, and how to get the ball rolling. Introducing the newest monthly webinar series from Dataversity, Elevating Enterprise Data Literacy, where we discuss the landscape of data literacy and answer your burning questions. Learn more about this new series and register for free at dataversity.net.
Hello and welcome. My name is Shannon Kemp, and I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Dataversity, and this is My Career in Data, a Dataversity Talks podcast dedicated to learning from those who have careers in data management, to understand how they got there, and to be talking with people who help make those careers a little bit easier. To keep up to date in the latest in data management education, go to dataversity.net/subscribe. Today, we are joined by Katrina Ingram, the founder and CEO of Ethically Aligned AI. And normally, this is where a podcast host would read a short bio of the guest, but in this podcast, your bio is what we're here to talk about. Katrina, hello and welcome.
Hey, Shannon, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Looking forward to our chat.
Me too. So let's dive in. I love your background. You are the founder and CEO of Ethically Aligned AI. So tell me about the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a little bit of a backstory to this company. I actually did a midlife career pivot in 2017. So I went back to school and I started doing a master's degree in communications and technology at the University of Alberta. And while I was there, I encountered this topic of AI ethics. So this is 2018, and I was really interested in this topic. I just wanted to dig into it. I spent all my time researching it and trying to understand how data scientists and machine learning experts were thinking about ethics. Were they even thinking about ethics? And so when I graduated in 2020, I really wanted to keep going in this field, but I didn't really see any companies really focused on this issue. So I decided to launch my own company in 2021, Ethically Aligned AI. We're a social enterprise, and we focus on helping organizations to build and deploy better, more responsible AI solutions. And what that's looked like in the past couple of years is a lot of education, because people don't really know how AI has been impacting them. I think they're starting to get a sense of that now as we're kind of living through this, AI hype cycle at the moment. But a couple of years ago, it wasn't really apparent. So I did a lot of work in education, a lot of training, a lot of workshops, and a lot of consulting. And I'm really excited because we're embarking on some new work in the realm of tools and some technologies that we're going to build to deliver a process to help with responsible AI. So that's a little bit about me and the company and how we got started.
Oh, that's very cool. And I'm excited to learn how you decided to make career shift. But let's back it up. And so a little bit. So tell me what you think. What is your definition then of responsible AI? What's the focus there?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So you can look at this from two different perspectives. So the perspective that first hit me was, look at all the harmful things that are happening with AI. So this is 2018. We're talking about facial recognition. We're talking about AI gone wrong scenarios. We're talking about all the ways in which AI was impacting people and causing really harmful outcomes, discrimination, bias, unfairness of all kinds. So that's kind of one way of framing it. Or you could look at it and go, what are all the ways in which we could do better and be more responsible and more thoughtful in terms of how we're building these products so we can get to better outcomes? And I do look at it both ways. Sometimes it's helpful just to illustrate the ways in which harms are happening so that you can get to that better outcome. So that's really what responsible AI is all about, the practices, the processes, the tools that you need to get to these better outcomes.
Oh, very nice. So then how do you work with your customers? What's your typical work week look like?
Well, we are a startup, so every week is a little bit different. And I still have one foot in academia. So, for example, this week I was marking a lot of papers. I taught a summer course on AI ethics at the university, so I was doing a lot of that. But on any given week, I'm doing some business development. I'm talking with new potential clients. I'm doing consulting work with existing clients. I'm putting together training courses. I spend a lot of time reading because this field is, it's just happening so rapidly. Everything is changing and in flux. So I really feel the need to be really up on the latest research and the latest things for going on. So I do a lot of reading. And then I do some media engagements, things like this podcast, for example. So it's kind of it's a nice mix. It's a whole bunch of different things that I'll do in a week.
Sure, sure, absolutely. So, so let's tell me then, Katrina, was this the dream? So, like, say you were 6 years old, and was this the dream? When I grow up, I want to be a founder and CEO of a company that promotes responsible AI.
No, nowhere close.
What was the
I
dream?
want I wanted to be a fashion designer. That was kind of my
Oh,
first dream. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
And then
Yeah.
the adults, they kind of come in and they're like, "Are you sure you really want to do that?" And so I didn't pursue that. I actually wound up in business school instead,
Oh, yeah.
studying to be a marketer. So it was kind of like, this reality check on the dream. But I think in hindsight, I probably gave up on that a little too soon. But the other
Yeah.
thing, yeah, the other thing I wanted to do is write. I really wanted to be a writer.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of feel like I'm closer to that because I'm doing a lot of writing. I do writing for my blog. I write my
Oh,
courses.
yeah.
I write speeches. So I'm maybe like closer to that dream. But yeah, the idea of AI, I mean, that was just not even in the consideration set at all.
Oh, interesting. So you went into study business then. So why'd you pursue that, and where did that lead you? Where'd you end up majoring in?
Yeah, I'll tell you the journey to get
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I think probably a lot of people think they have a really like circuitous career journey. I know I did. I 100% know that's true. So yeah, so I started in business school, and to get my creative fix, I thought I'll major in marketing. That'll be my thing.
Yeah.
And so I started out when I graduated. I went to work at an ad agency. So this is in the 90s. And I didn't love it. It was a little cutthroat. It was a little Melrose Place, if you remember that TV show.
Yes.
People were kind of like that, and I was a little
Yeah.
bit. That wasn't me. I couldn't step on other people or do any of that. So, anyways, I found my way into the technology space, working at a company called Crystal Decisions. And that
Hmm.
might be a name that's familiar to some of the audience because we made Crystal Reports, which is the big reporting software of
Uh-huh.
the time, anyways. And we were in the BI space, and I was doing marketing, and some of it was really interesting, but honestly, it wasn't quite creative enough. I didn't quite feel like it was my thing. And on my way to work every day, I used to walk past the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation building, the
Yeah.
CBC. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to work in broadcasting? It'd be so cool. So one day I quit my job and I applied at the CBC and I started working in radio. And I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
And then that led to other career opportunities to manage a radio station here in Alberta, where I'm from. So I managed an indie music station called CKUA Radio. And it was super fun. And that's kind of where I stayed until that 2017 moment where I decided I was going to pivot and go back to school. So in a weird way, like I'm back in technology again,
Yeah.
but with a
Yeah.
completely different slant on everything.
Sure. Oh, that's so fascinating. How fun to work for radio. I've always envisioned in some kind of radio career if in some other dimension, past life of mine.
It's a fun place, especially indie
Yeah,
radio. It's kind of like
yeah,
that old TV show WKRP where you have all these weird characters and you're just trying to
yeah.
like get them, organized. It kind of felt like it was herding cats on any given day.
I'm sure. So, so you went back into technology, and so when you started school again, what was the intent there? What was um the really the drive, the passion that you started of classes you started signing up for?
Yeah, well, to be totally honest, Shannon,
Yeah.
I was feeling a bit lost at that point because what was going on for
Mhm.
me is I was watching media blow up in some ways. So a lot of the challenges with media, which have to do with technology, because technology came in and it kind of undercut the business model for a lot of media organizations. And we
Right.
see that especially with news,
Yeah.
printed newspapers being kind of the biggest example. And while I was a little bit insulated from that, I had a lot of friends working in media. And I really had this moment where I thought, do I want to keep going in this field or do I want to try some new things? And I honestly didn't know what those new things were. So this degree sounded interesting. And I thought, I'll go and work it out and figure out what I want to do next. So it wasn't super intentional in the sense of I want to go and retrain to be X. It was a little bit more haphazard and accidental and just kind of I'm going to try this. I'm going to see what emerges from this process. And good things did emerge from it. So that was really how it all worked out.
How brave. I love that. That is so brave and bold and just way to follow your instincts and doing what you needed to do for you and take a chance. So, oh, I love that.
With a robust catalog of courses offered on demand and industry-leading live online sessions throughout the year, the Dataversity Training Center is your launchpad for career success. Browse the complete catalog at training.dataversity.net and use code DVTalks for 20% off your purchase.
So what was your biggest lesson then so far in your career?
Yeah, I think it's this idea, we're told at a young age that we're going to have this really linear career path. Like we're going to go into something, we're going to climb the ladder, we're going to get to the top of that ladder, and it's all going to be super linear. And so my biggest lesson has been it's not really like that, and that's okay. And in fact, I love this quote. I love Malcolm Gladwell, and he said this quote. He said, "It's a risk not to change careers." And I'm like, that's fantastic. I feel really validated when I hear something like that. So that's kind of like my big, maybe life lesson. And then the other thing I'll add, like as an entrepreneur, the other really big piece of advice that I got is to say yes to opportunities. You may not always know exactly how you're going to accomplish that goal, but there's something about stepping out there and saying yes and then figuring it out as you go that I think is really essential to the journey of being an entrepreneur and being bold about things. And so that's something that I think about a lot too, because sometimes it feels like risky, like I don't know how I'm going to do this, but you know what, I'm going to sign up and say yes, and I feel confident I can figure it out.
So true, so brave. Part of why we started this podcast is because I too grew up believing that that career path would be so linear, and especially in data, there for anybody older than Gen Z, I think it wasn't there wasn't really a a college degree. There wasn't a data was just this kind of obscure thing out on the edges. So nobody in data management really had a straight path to it. It's just everyone just kind of stumbled into it, and it's so true. And it's so fun to explore and hear how people have explored to find their path and their niche in data.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm even just thinking about the title Dataversity, and I'm thinking about diversity and data and all these diverse people coming together. And I love that.
Yeah, it's funny. In fact, when I'm doing a webinar, people turn on the transcript, which is AI, based, right? And then the transcript never gets dataversity, right? And it always translates to diversity.
Oh my goodness.
Well, progress. We're getting there. So tell me, Katrina, so now what's your definition of data?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to try something here. We're going to do a little experiment if you're up for it, Shannon.
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay, so here's the experiment. So everyone listening and those of us here on the podcast, we all have heartbeats. I hope we all have heartbeats, because if we don't, we have bigger problems here. So my question is your heartbeat data? So let's just pause for a second and consider that. Is your heartbeat data? So if we think about that, we can think about the idea that a heartbeat has the potential to be data. And I don't know, Shannon, are you wearing a Fitbit at all?
I have my Apple Watch.
Oh, you have your Apple Watch. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you are probably rendering something, your heartbeat perhaps, into data. You're turning it into data. And those of you out there listening who have a Fitbit or an Apple Watch are doing the same thing. So we think of data as this thing that we can capture. So there's lots of different things that can be represented. So I always think of data as a representation of a phenomenon. It's kind of a snapshot of something. And it's linked to this idea of being able to capture something. And what's happening right now is we have more and more ways of capturing things. So we have more and more ways of turning things into data that we could never really turn into data before. And we have ways to store those things, and we have ways to leverage those things into new, analytics and so forth. And so that's part of how I think of data. And then the other piece I think of is this idea of data as an assemblage. So it's not just the output. It's not just like the heartbeat number for me. It's that whole process of what we've done. So we captured it, we're using it in certain ways, we've made decisions to even collect it as data. And so as an ethicist, what I do is I look at all that context, and I look at the ethical questions that might come with that. So that's kind of a way of how I think about data and kind of what it means to me as a data ethicist.
Oh, I love that perspective. And it's so true. And I do love my fitness data. I do. I was at a conference recently, and there was a yoga class offered, and the gal next to me, I'm like, oh, I forgot to start my watch. And she's like, oh yeah, me too. She's like, it doesn't count unless we capture the data.
Well, it's so funny. So I'm like a huge Orange Theory
Yeah.
enthusiast. And so people are like, well, what do you mean? Like, aren't you the one who's all about privacy and ethics and all of that? And I am, but I'm like, but it's useful to me because I can see what I'm doing in terms of my workout and where I'm going. And so it's kind of serving me in that moment. And so, yeah, I'm big on the health data as well.
Yeah. I love it. That's the fun thing about data, right? It's in everything and everywhere, and we get to work with it in so many exciting ways that benefit us.
Yeah.
So tell me, Katrina, do you see the importance then of data management and the number of jobs working with data increasing or decreasing over the next 10 years, and why?
Yeah, it's so vital. When we think about data, data is everywhere. And every company is becoming a technology company. So we used to think of tech companies as like Microsoft or Apple, and yeah, those are tech companies. But increasingly, what we're seeing is your grocery store is becoming a tech company. The car company is becoming a tech company. It's all about data. Data is really at the heart of all of that. And so data is everywhere, and data is part of everyone's job, whether you recognize that or not. And so this idea of really understanding, like being data literate, understanding data governance, understanding data management, like it's incredibly important, understanding ethics as well, all like super important to pretty much any kind of job that you're going to have now and in the future.
Oh, very true. So what advice then would you give to people who are looking to get into a career in data?
Yeah, there's so much to learn about data. I mean, it's such a fascinating topic. Obviously, there's great podcasts like this and all of the great resources on Dataversity. So I highly recommend all of that. You've got some fantastic guests, like some real heavy hitters. When I looked at who's who of data, Laura, Sebastian Coleman, Peter Aiken, they've all been on this podcast. So there's some really great people to follow. I also love the DAMA community. So DAMA is the data management community. They have this massive book, which is their body of knowledge. And I spent some really good time with my local DAMA group going through that book. And it was fun because we were doing it as a group project, and we were like helping each other out and also building community at the same time. So I think get connected to community. That would be part of my advice. And then I think also sometimes it can feel intimidating especially if you're thinking, oh, this is a career pivot or something different. But there's ways to add data to whatever you're doing right now. So if you're an educator, you have an education background like myself, you can help to learn about data and teach data courses. If you're a lawyer, maybe you can pivot into privacy and data. Like there's ways to kind of add data to a career that you already have if that's what you're doing. So there's lots of different opportunities.
Such great advice. I love that. So, and Katrina, I'm curious. I'm so curious to like, what's the number one like advice as just that you give to your customers about being responsible with AI? What is the core of being ethical
Yeah,
and responsible?
It's I mean, really ethics, a lot of ethics is about being really thoughtful and intentional about your process. So I think number one, if you're wanting to be responsible, that's a fantastic start. You're starting out, you want to do something positive. I think you can look at everything holistically. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's really tempting just to look at the solution, but you should look at the problem that you're trying to solve before you kind of jump to the solution, and then sort of figure out what's going on here. And from an ethics standpoint, what makes sense as a solution? Who might be impacted? So start really thinking holistically about how you're approaching things. And then just try and iterate and do better next time. I think that, sometimes people get intimidated and they think, I have to have everything perfect the first time out. I try to encourage people that that's not necessarily the case. What it's about is trying to build up a capacity for ethical thinking and responsible AI in your company, and then just kind of building on that and iterating. So that's really what I encourage people to do.
Oh, very nice. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you and solicit your services, how would they find you?
Sure. Well, there's lots of information on my website, ethicallyalignedai.com. I'm also on LinkedIn a lot, so you can find me there. It's another good place. Yeah, those are probably the two main sources.
Oh, this has been so great. Katrina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks so much for the invite. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a great fun. So I'm really excited to watch what you do, and because I think this topic is just getting bigger and bigger and better, and more important. It's so important right now with all the generative AI and everything else out there. So thank you
Absolutely.
for taking this on and
Thanks so much,
championing.
Shannon.
Well, and to all of our listeners out there, if you'd like to keep up to date in the latest in podcasts and in the latest in data management education, you may go to dataversity.net/subscribe. Until next time, and stay curious, everyone. Thank you for listening to Dataversity Talks, a podcast brought to you by Dataversity. Subscribe to our newsletter for podcast updates and information about our free educational webinars at dataversity.net/subscribe.